In theory, let's face it, big data analysis should be the backbone to modern policy making, to government, guiding ministers through the complexities of economic trends, labour markets, fiscal planning. But in practice, however, Westminster's access to big data is proving to be woefully inadequate, and when they get access to it, they don't understand it. The ministers don't understand it, and it's riddled with failure and outdated methodology. Nowhere is this more evident than in the crisis engulfing the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, whose primary labour market survey has been branded virtually unusable, a failure that not only undermines economic strategy and the whole business of the Treasury, but also exposes the broader flaws in the UK's data infrastructure, processing, management, collection, and so on. The Labour Force Survey, the LFS, the UK's primary tool for measuring employment and workforce trends, has become unreliable because of its plummeting response rates. And COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated long-term declines in participation, rendering its estimates widely volatile. At one point, it was suggested that nearly 1 million workers have been lost because of faulty calculations, and attempts to revive the LFS have only highlighted deeper dysfunctions within the ONS, with a full replacement survey unlikely before 2027. The result? Policymakers are making crucial decisions on tax policy, on wage regulations, on economic growth, without a clear picture of who is actually in the workforce. Now, this isn't to try and exonerate or excuse Rachel Reeves' stupidity, or indeed the stupidity of various string of Home Office ministers from the Conservatives through to the present Labour administration. This is about identifying where some of the faults lie. And if the government is using faulty analysis, which it appears to be doing, then it should be looking towards people who can really manage data analysis, who can really collect it, collate it, and interpret it. And the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey has openly admitted that the inability to track labour market participation accurately is a substantial problem for setting interest rates. And if the government doesn't know how many people are working, unemployed, or economically inactive, how can it meaningfully tailor benefits, adjust tax thresholds, or anticipate inflationary pressures? The answer is it can't. It's poking in the dark. And the ONS's woes are not confined to employment data. The agency has faced significant problems with its migration and earnings figures, leading to potentially sensitive revisions that fuel public distrust, and proposed reforms to the once-a-decade census in favour of real-time administrative data risk compounding these problems rather than solving them. And this crisis has been exacerbated by years of funding cuts, high staff turnover, poor internal communication, and an internal review found that the ONS employees were reluctant to raise concerns because of a preference for delivery over quality, leading to a situation where data collection was falling apart, yet those responsible for it felt unable to act. If Westminster's ability to analyse big data is faltering, the private sector is not much better off. A September 2024 report revealed that 72% of UK firms are struggling with skills shortages in artificial intelligence, data analysis, and cybersecurity. And the push to integrate AI-driven decision-making is stalling because of a lack of trained personnel and concerns over data security. There are data processing organisations that can do the job, but it doesn't seem that they're in the government. And it doesn't seem that they're in leading private companies. While businesses are scrambling to upskill their workforce, many are realising that AI tools cannot function effectively without high-quality data input. And if public sector data is unreliable and corporate data lacks proper analysis, then both policy and business strategies are being built on shaky foundations. And with unreliable data, the Labour government's key economic policies are operating entirely in the dark. Consider the following questions. Will higher tax stifle job creation? No one knows for sure because the employment data is incomplete. Will raising the minimum wage lead to higher youth unemployment? The Low Pay Commission itself has warned that it cannot properly advise ministers because of faulty statistics. Are health issues keeping millions out of work, or is this a statistical illusion? The government has spent billions tackling NHS waiting lists in areas where economic inactivity seems high, only to later discover that the figures may have been misleading all along. In other words, the UK is engaged in economic policy making by guesswork. A government claiming to prioritise economic growth is relying on data that is so flawed that even the Bank of England is developing its own alternative measures rather than trusting the ONS. Westminster's access to big data should be an asset, but instead it's a liability because it's failing data, because its people are collecting it wrongly, because the people aren't collecting it properly, because it isn't being collected, because it's a mess. The failure of the labour force survey, the degradation of migration and earnings statistics, the inability of private firms to leverage AI effectively all point to one problem. The UK has neither the infrastructure nor the expertise to handle the data revolution. We need inspired individuals, inspired small companies to come along and take over this problem and do it fast. Until these issues are addressed, policymakers will continue to make economic decisions based on outdated, unreliable, misleading information, putting Britain at severe disadvantage in an increasingly data-driven world. The time to act is now, and if there are smaller firms that can do this job, please get in touch, because I want to hear what you've got to offer, because I think we are in a position to change things. I think we are in a position to make things move. But I think relying on what the government is already offering us is to rely on error, misinformation, and deceit.